Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Excuse me while I sneeze.
You are excused.
Oh, I think George just wanted a reason to bust out like the cough button. For listeners at home, George often George he's like me. He loves a new toy. Loves a new toy to muck around with, and you know, for the past occasionally over the past few weeks, just sending us the little pictures of his what's it called again? A stream deck.
So I've got both.
The Elgato Stream Deck.
I've got both parts of it. I've got the Stream Deck, and right next to it, I've got the Wave XLR, which is the thing that this guy, the microphone, plugs into. So this is like so you can adjust the gain. It's like a dial, and then like a mute button on the back of that. It's like got a capacitive button on the you just tap it and.
Didn't you have you have our soundboard though, which has gain dials on it?
Yeah, but like it's a huge like the mixer you're talking about is like it's like a foot by like a foot and a half long. Like he's a big boy, whereas this guy just sits on a little dock on my desk. And this the Stream Deck does other things, like it lets me turn on the nano leafs in the background, and it's all very essential, Tom. Okay, I don't appreciate this fucking little face that you're giving me right now of like, oh, George wastes his money on minutia. Okay, George is a poor wasting his hard-earned money on ridiculous things, while you, sir, have a Back to the Future hoverboard in your background, as well as a plethora of pop vinyl. So here is a dick that you may suck.
Excuse me, that hoverboard that you see behind you was a gift, you bastard. It was a gift for my birthday.
That's a good gift.
It was lovely, thank you. I love it very much.
Did I contribute to that?
No.
Well, you guys are trying to out-nerd each other.
Adam goes off on the weekends and pretends to be in a war.
Yeah.
There you go. Adam's out-nerded us all.
That's all right. Adam will be ready for when China invades.
Mm-hmm. He'll be ready with his go bag to run and hide like a coward.
Like a little bitch. I had a tweet that kind of went a little bit viral a little while ago, and it's one of the things I was talking. It was something like we're going after Labor for shoveling slightly less money into the military-industrial complex 10 years ago, but like no one's talking about the things that the LNP are currently setting fire to. And one of the guys that responded to me, like quite angrily, was like, mate, when the Chinese fucking invade, you're going to be the first one to fucking surrender, you little fucking surrender monkey. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. If the Chinese invade, they have 1 million man standing army. Like, of course we should resign. Like, if that actually happens, like if what you're talking about actually comes to pass, I'm not going to fucking tomorrow when the war began out in the bush, like with a bunch of teenagers doing bombings, you know, drive-bys on fucking Chinese supply depots. Like, I'm going to immediately surrender because if not, I will immediately die. Like, of course.
It's not also that like us as random civilians would be the ones being expected to decide whether or not to surrender.
Yes.
Like, no, I feel like, you know, the people who are in charge of the armed forces and all that sort of stuff are the ones who maybe make the call as to whether or not to surrender. I imagine more our situation would be either killed or taken prisoners. Like, you know, in that situation, we're not going to be the ones dictating whether or not Australia gives in.
Yeah, I think it was Bill Burr who had a joke, something about like, girls think that they'd be Rose on the Titanic, but I know for sure I'd be the guy that when the boat turns sideways, I'd be banging. I'd get banged all the way down. Knocking all the way. There's that guy who falls like, poof, 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 and like bangs off a bunch of stuff before falling into the water. That's me. That's Bill Burr. That's me. Like, I have no doubt whatsoever that would be the case. So the reason we're talking about China invading, other than the fact that it is, of course, immediately imminent, if you ask Peter Dutton, is that there is the potential that the Solomon Islands have signed a pact with China, which some say...
a tasty pact.
Just a little pact at Christmas. I've signed a pact saying that it allows for like Chinese boats and things to come in and, I guess, defend personnel. Adam, could you shed a little bit more light as to what it actually says? It's very vague, right?
Knows, George, what it actually says because the agreement is secret and everyone is losing their fucking minds about what it could possibly say.
There's some sort of pact between the Solomon Islands and China, and everyone's freaking out because it's a mere 2,000 kilometers away from Australia. Like, it's just in our backyard. It's basically like a Cuban Missile Crisis. And I'm like, Cuba's 90 miles away from the American mainland. Yeah. It's slightly different. But yeah, I see your point. But just everyone take a breath.
Strategic. It's within the strategic area of sort of our influence or traditional area of influence.
No, if you listen to Labour, it is the biggest blunder in the Pacific since World War II, which I don't know that. I feel like we won the war in the Pacific. I could correct me if I'm wrong. My grasp on history isn't fantastic, but I feel like we did pretty good in the Pacific. They made a TV show out of it, so we must have done pretty good.
Australia didn't do too good. Like we lost an entire division in Singapore. But anyway.
There you go. Just lost them behind the couch like ScoMo loses $60 billion of JobKeeper money? Or basically.
So, look, the reason why we sort of know roughly about what it's about, some of the text was leaked. We talked about it a month ago, 2 months ago, something like that. For as far as what I know that's actually in the text, it basically says that there'll be a port where they can dock ships. And there would be some capacity for security personnel to be there to protect said ships.
Yes.
Now, as to how specific the actual text of the agreement is in terms of are they private military contractors? Are they the armed Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy? Are they actual members of the Defense Force? What are their sort of remits in terms of self-defense, rules of engagement, all this kind of stuff? How much, logistical stuff do they get to have? Is there an airfield, tied in with it? All this kind of stuff is very vague, and a lot of this is just fear, basically.
The National Security Council, Kurt Campbell in the US, says that the US will, quote, respond accordingly to any steps made by China to establish a de facto military presence. So
what they're worried about is that they've seen
they're worried about a base.
The stuff in the South China Sea.
Yeah.
They've seen what China's doing with its Belt and Road Initiative elsewhere, and they're going, well, obviously this is just another thing. It'll be the same thing where they just, what people are worried about. An example would be with Papua New Guinea, that there's been a talk about adding a fisheries base somewhere to the north of Australia, which would allow Chinese fishermen to then dock there and basically destroy the fish stocks of that area, and then also have, security personnel there to protect those ships. So, it's a slippery slope, and depending on what's actually in the text of the agreement, it could be quite vague, which allows China to do whatever the fuck they want. From the Solomon Islands perspective, it's probably a good thing. They get a bunch of capital. They get some additional security training. The political elite in the Solomon Islands get a bit of extra security training for their security forces, because every 5 to 6 years, the Solomon Islands goes full riot mode, and there's they try to overthrow the government. So, the funny thing is, because Australia has an existing publicly known treaty with the Solomon Islands where we are the preferred security partner. So in theory, if the government gets overthrown in the Solomon Islands, we're meant to be the first ones to go in and sort shit out. So this agreement, potentially, what they're worried about is, of course, that this will start to shift that power balance. And within 2,000 kilometres, the reason why that's significant is a lot of missiles these days, the range, or jets, about 2,000 kilometres is about the range of some of the long-range, bombers or missiles that you could base potentially off a ship or even on land, depending, again, on what is in
the... what are they going to be able to hit? Darwin? Who cares?
Well, it'd be like Port Douglas or something.
That's fine. Don't worry about it.
I was going to say, George, I think you need to check your geography.
I'm just
where
saying.
The Solomons are relevant to 2,000 kilometres away.
No, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they're not going to hit anything important, right? Yes, Melbourne and Sydney, we're okay.
Bob Hatter has a lot of really important crocodiles up there that he would like.
That's true.
And also, speaking of Darwin, this just picked something in my brain as well.
To be clear, we've got friends in Darwin. I obviously would be upset if Darwin was wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah. No. Sorry, what I was going to refer to is, I don't know, like that they're overly concerned about this, but also there was that whole thing of the 99-year lease of a port in Darwin that's to a Chinese company, but everyone talks about that specific company's like connection to the People's Liberation Army of China. Like, I don't know. It's all this sort of stuff like, oh, you're really worried about this when also, I don't know, they've got a port here. Like, it might not be able to be as openly militarized, but...
Chinese do literally own the port of Darwin. It's a very good point.
So, for the next 100-ish, like little under 100 years. So...
It's it is one of those things where it's kind of like it's obviously not good, but also like how much of a difference is it actually going to make in everyone's day-to-day lives? I don't think it's going to be a meaningful difference. Obviously, like China is trying to get increased influence in the region, but I just don't buy. We haven't seen any evidence other than like sort of dispute, like China has been robust and aggressive in like disputed territories, okay, with like places like Taiwan and Hong Kong and things like that. And that's obviously like terrible. And the way they've treated the people in those countries has been awful. But I don't like, we haven't seen any evidence of like China invading the Philippines or like a different country altogether. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it is slightly, all the people hyperventilating over a Chinese invasion of Australia is like, it's pretty.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a bit much.
And its timing, I think, like, obviously, you wouldn't think it's all in cahoots or anything, but the timing of, I feel, people like Peter Dutton and all that spruiking this as invasion threat is imminent. There's also an election coming up.
No, the election is imminent. That's what they're worried about.
Hungering there, being like, oh, can you really trust anyone else to stand up to China when they invade?
Yeah, which is hilarious because like they've been hitting Albo and Labour with this like China stuff, foreign policy, national security, and then like Solomon Islands signs a defense pact with China, and they're like, "Don't worry about it, keep moving, just keep moving." Like, don't worry, you're looking at it, don't look at it.
The thing where you'd look at their behaviour and go, "Oh, okay," is probably in the South China Sea with those islands they physically made off those reefs.
Yes,
because
I love making an island.
You used to be able to just like drive a boat through there. Now they'll be like, you can't come any closer than 50 kilometers, or we'll shoot you down or capture your boat or whatever it may be.
The thing about the Spratly,
but that's a bit different. Their islands they made. It's a bit different to a sovereign country where they've got like a lease on a port or something.
There's a great book, I think it's just called The South China Sea, which goes into it. But yeah, essentially it's like what they're doing in the area is problematic. But I mean, the Spratly Islands themselves, these islands to the south of the sort of disputed region, where they're putting, like you say, creating islands or building off some very, very limited islands that wouldn't be able to support human life. I wonder to the extent that those, like, they think there might be oil underneath them. They think there might be resources, but it's really just like shipping lanes more than anything else. It's not like as to what we know for a fact is definitely there. It's really just like access to China.
Area denial.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Yes.
So if China decides to take Taiwan, you can't send reinforcements up from the south.
Yeah.
Put it that way. But
and don't get me wrong,
I just find
I think
it's interesting.
The Chinese are obviously like, I do think they are operating in bad faith. It is like a rising power, and I do think there will be more land grabs like Hong Kong and Taiwan coming down the track. And we should do everything within reason to sort of like, what's the
Diplomacy?
Yeah, diplomacy. But what's the American term of strategic ambiguity, where it's like no. So it's like, okay, yes, we can engage with you diplomatically to try and sort of contain your efforts and make sure that you abide by the rules based order. But like, but also like, oh, we're building up our military, and like maybe like we could be like part of a larger force that could contain you if you go too crazy, sort of thing. Like, I think that is the right move, But like, if shit actually properly kicks off with China, like it would fuck everything up. So like, we've got much bigger problems if the US goes to war with China beyond just like a couple of islands, beyond just, the Solomon Islands is a passing
Can I
thought.
get my new, my new Apple iPhone? Is that going to be delivered? Turns out no, because they're made in China. But yeah, it's hyperbole because we're in an election. Interestingly enough, the US has sort of, after not commenting on this whole issue for 2 months, they've since come out and gone, we're not happy about this, and we think it's, not in good faith and all this kind of stuff. And they're going to sending some personnel there, some diplomats to the Solomon Islands who previously they didn't give a shit about.
Well, this is the thing.
Set an embassy up in the Solomon Islands. There's no embassy in the Solomon Islands of the US. Now they're like, oh, we have to worry about the Solomons. It's like, well, too little, too late, fuckheads.
Yeah. So there was a similar debate as to like whether Maurice Payne, our minister here, should go, like whether it was her that physically went over there or whether it was the junior minister who went over. And it's like, yeah, all of this is like decades too late. Like, it just shows how poorly we've treated our family, as Scott Morrison calls them, our Pacific family. Like, they're our little cousins, our little brothers in the region, a Pacific family. We've treated them so poorly, and they've taken such a back seat, for the last, number of decades, that like, yeah, why wouldn't it have driven them into the arms of China? Like, this is when we talk about we talked about this recently. When we talk about foreign aid budgets, when we talk about helping out our partners in the region, when we talk about mocking, we had a climate change summit where we mocked the Pacific Island nations for worrying about rising floodwaters, and Scott Morrison's dancing around on the floor of Parliament holding a piece of coal going, don't be scared, it's just a piece of coal. What are you being a scared little bitch for? Like, when you neglect that relationship for years and years, and they've been in power for the last 9 years, so there's no one else to blame but themselves, right, for this going sideways. When you've been in charge, actively neglecting this relationship for 20 years, it's completely unsurprising that like China comes with a big bag of cash and says, hey, we're going to be the new daddy. And everyone gets outraged. And it's like, A, what'd you expect? But like, B, they're playing the same game that we've been like the West and the colonialist imperialist nations have been playing for the last 150 years, where it's like, we did the same thing. The Chinese are probably doing it a bit nicer. They're doing the 21st century version of imperialism where they do it with money rather than, say again?
And a contract.
Rather than at the tip of a sword. Some British guy hops off a boat and goes, yeah, all this is fucking ours now. like it's actually a nicer version of what the West has been doing for the last couple of 100 years. And yeah, we go, hey, they can't do that.
That's our thing.
That's our thing. You can't be the cultural imperialists. That's our job. It's so hypocritical.
Yeah, well, I guess that'll be a bit of maybe a very long-term watch this space sort of thing. I guess we should probably jump into, we mentioned the election before, so there's been some interesting stuff going on here in Australia. We're 2 weeks down, fellas. We've got 4 more to go. Jesus Christ.
I like you said, I think it was last week, Tom, I really feel bad for our American friends. Like 6 weeks campaign feels like a long time to us until you remember like the primaries just by themselves over in America are
they do like
year.
2 years. Yeah, they do like a year of it, and then after they've decided who the candidates are going to be, then there's like another fucking 9 months of that bullshit. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and then there's the general. Yeah.
But I was going to say, before we... Sorry, Adam.
I was going to say, there is de facto like campaigning. Like, we've sort of been talking about the election now for
it's about like 3 months.
Yeah. Because they start to...
Oh, yeah. But when it gets into like people are allowed to, they have debates and all that sort of shit. Because I guess, I don't think we really had sort of a lot of this in the rundown. I should have shared a link. But before we get on to Freidenberg and some cute puppies, it's not what you think, listener at home. Did you guys see Anthony Albanese, the Labour leader and the prime ministerial hopeful of the election, got the Rona? And this past week, and the response to it has been incredible, because we all know that like the Murdoch press will just do anything and everything just to be pieces of shit. But I love that the angle that they've taken on this. I was discussing it with my partner Alice the other day, and I think she put it best that they're like, look at this fuckhead. He caught COVID. Can you vote for someone who caught COVID? Can you vote for the guy who caught the thing that at least 10,000 people a day in Victoria catch?
It's
Fucking
completely
idiot.
unsurprising, though, right? Like, you're walking around, you're meeting hundreds of people a day. Like, a lot of those people aren't going to be masked. It was just a matter of time, right?
It's just funny that, like, you know, because
Scott Morrison already
Scott Morrison got coronavirus like a month or two ago. And that was all like, whoo, damn, you know, best wishes. But then they're like, Alba Sneezy, headlines and stuff. I'm like, fucking hell.
It's just like,
not Anthony, even pretending anymore.
Anthony Albanese exists, you know, and then Murdoch News Media, what a fucking cuck piece of shit.
Yeah, I love just, he caught an illness. You can't trust him to be Prime Minister.
And it's like, Scott Morrison's like, what an idiot. You should have got it out of the way when there was something unimportant on, like the bushfires, like I did.
Yeah.
Not during something important like an election campaign.
Oh, the floods. It was during the floods.
The floods, not the bushfires.
Yeah. The I guess the most opposite to a bushfire natural disaster you can have, a flood natural disaster.
It's a spectrum. It's all on a continuum of the kinds of natural disasters that we get.
Yeah, all terrible. But yeah, so I suppose we've had a good week of politicians putting their foot in it, especially Scott Morrison. His whole saying he was blessed to not have disabled children was I saw very
that clip.
Gross.
What the fuck, dude? What sort of person? Are you brain dead? Like, his empathy coach just like must have had a fucking stroke when he saw that. It was just like, I quit. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I can't imagine his social media team would have been happy either. It's like, oh God.
So the questioner said, hey, my kid's on the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Yeah, I think they said they had a child with autism, and it's like, yeah, we get our funding from the NDIS. It's been cut so much, like our payments have been dropping, other people's payments are dropping because of cuts to the NDIS. I've been told that if I care about my child's future that relies on these schemes, I should vote Labor. What? So, like, I guess it was a question to the both of them, the sort of thing. I've been told I should vote Labor, but talk to me about your policies on the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Yeah.
And yeah, his response was pretty fucked. I don't have the quote in front of me. I should grab it.
It said something to the effect of like, where Jenny and I have been blessed, not to have that issue or something like that. You can pick up the exact quote. But
what his point was. To be fair, I think this has been taken massively out of context.
Yeah,
it's not great phrasing. To be fair, it's not a gaff.
I think it just goes to show.
All right, let him talk. Let him
talk. The way
talk.
he implied that was that I haven't had to go through what you had to go through, so I can't really come from your perspective.
Okay, but there's a way of saying that. But hang on, you could say that with those words, and that would be better than the way that he said it.
Yes,
I'm not saying he said it well, but I'm just saying it wasn't like I said that full stop. The commentary around it hasn't been, I think,
but also the thing that people caught, because the quote that they have here was the person asked, "What does the NDIS look like under your government?" And one of the quotes they had from Scott Morrison was, "Jenny and I have been blessed. We've got 2 children that haven't had to go through that." And all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's pretty bad. But I also thought his where was his response? Because when he followed up with it the next day,
there as a soundbite, I was like, Sky News, you just kicked a massive own goal because he clearly spoke for another 5 minutes on this, and then you've just cut it off.
Hang on.
The thing is, the woman didn't even get an answer to her question. That's the real shame of that, is that everyone's focusing on but there wasn't a resolution. There was just a bunch of talking points about how good is the NDIS. Like, it wasn't she didn't get an answer to the question of like, why are payments dropping? Is that going to continue to happen under a Liberal government? Like, what's the story? Who should I vote for if this is my sole concern? Like, the commentary around it was all about Scott Morrison's inexact phrasing, let's say, rather than answering the question of like, what the fuck is going to become of the NDIS, especially when you're appointing Anne Ruston to the portfolio of health, when she's like very famously made comments in the past about how things like Medicare were unsustainable. And, you know, like all this sort of like she is famously a person that like wants to tighten the belt on health spending. And they're like, great, let's make her the health minister. Perfect. It's troubling.
Yeah. God, I'm trying to find the quote. I remember his follow-up of his attempt to apologize for what he said and to correct it because yes, I think Adam, what he was maybe hoping to say was, the saying that I haven't got your lived experience, which I guess wasn't really part of the question anyway, but yeah, said it horrifically. But in his response to it, I remember he just essentially said it again, which I thought was quite amazing. I'm just trying to find the exact quote.
But how is this guy not fucking media trained at this point? Like, okay, throw me the question, George. What would you do? Give me the question.
I don't know.
Give me the question. What would you do? I'll feed myself the question. Fuck you.
Feed yourself the question. I don't know. You're off a tangent.
Mr. Tsipos, you know, my kids have been, you know, their payments have been dropping. People's payments have been dropping. Like, I'm concerned. What would you do under your government to address the NDIS? And I'd say, well, thanks so much for your question, first of all. Obviously, the NDIS is really super important. I'm sorry you've had to go through all that. It sounds like it's been really super stressful, and I really empathize. You know, under our government, we're going to be spending $11 squillion on the NDIS, and you can rest assured that under a government that I lead, it's always going to be a priority. Okay, so please speak to my staff afterwards, and we'll see if we can get a resolution to your situation. That's how it started. Like, I'm not even trying to be funny. It's just like you get up there and you just use your heart as a human being to speak to another human being who is not an NPC in a video game, you fucking ghoul. Like, you just speak from the heart. You go, that sounds really tough. I'm sorry you've had to go through that. Let's try and find a resolution together.
To support the NDIS until I took an arrow to the knee.
Yeah, until I took an arrow to the knee. Yes, exactly right.
That is a dated.
What did you get, Tom? Did you get the actual full transcript?
Oh yeah. So when he was on, when Scott Morrison was on 2GB, I think the next day, saying his apology, was saying, I just thought this was interesting. He said, every single child is a blessing. There's no doubt about that in my mind. What I was saying was in good faith about her son. She didn't take it as an insult. I was simply saying it's tough and I'm grateful there are these hardships that we haven't had to deal with.
That's not. Stop.
So he said it again. Just to be trying to apologize.
No. All I was saying is that it's fucking excellent that I don't have. No, I'm not going to use that word. Right. I don't have disabled kids because that sounds really fucked.
Yeah, I just thought it was like, because then he further went on to say, I was trying to say I haven't walked in your shoes and so I don't understand it
then
like you do.
That.
The fact
that words.
In his attempt to apologize, he just said it again. Man.
He's such a ghoul. He's such a fucking he's a ghoul.
He's a stone golem. He's just this like big lumbering like nothing.
Just this hulking idiot. Like, honestly, I don't understand how that can be the response. It's like, boy, I'm lucky I'm not that guy.
Wasn't the first debate held by Sky News?
Yeah, so I couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
Why would they let them do it on Sky News? How did Sky News get the rights to that? Jesus.
Yeah, not a public broadcaster.
Maybe there'll be another one.
I'm sure there'll be more.
By fucking Channel 7 or something? I don't know.
Yeah, you think it'd be a free-to-air. I don't know why the Labor Party would agree to the first debate being on Sky News. They're like, let's let the Murdoch press own the narrative. I'm like, okay.
Right. So I guess, that was some crazy wild stuff in the week. But the thing that we did have here in the rundown was...
Did you see how the Murdoch press all... so the young Liberals... So people were polled afterwards and they said, who do you think won the debate? And it was like 45 for... Anthony Albanese and like 35 for ScoMo. So like fairly handily won the debate. Yeah. And then like the Young Liberals of Australia posted like the results are in, ScoMo won the debate. Like, no.
And like they've been sharing that statistic breakdown.
Oh,
or did they just make up their own?
They just said ScoMo won, and like a photo of ScoMo being a fucking goober, just be like, yeah.
I can't remember what.
And there was also
today.
something in the Murdoch press today.
Chart?
Yes,
I just remembered that, and I was trying to look it up.
Yeah, so it was like, it was just like completely wrong. It was a pie chart that showed it was like 35. It's in my Instagram story. Actually.
Yeah, I'm just looking that up now.
So
they say the number is a certain value, but then
there we go. So
is something else.
Our verdict.
So the question
your verdict
was,
will Anthony Albanese having COVID-19 affect the Labor arties' chances at the election? So there's a misspelling in the copy. So just like fucking top quality journalism, guys. And it says your verdict: 35% yes in blue. Which makes up, by the looks of it, 66.
About two-thirds of the pie chart.
Two-thirds of the pie chart. And then no, 65% of people, but that looks to be making up 1/3 of the pie chart. So just like completely backwards, like they've got it completely wrong.
Yeah, the wrong way around. And it's just incredible.
Published?
Yeah.
Where was that published?
I think that's was the Daily Telegraph or something?
News Corp papers. Yeah, multiple papers.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
Because they're syndicated,
absolutely
right? So,
incredible.
Yeah, such a joke.
They're not even trying to hide it. They're saying the quiet part loud. Just
That's
always.
What, that TV show Dope Sick, which was talking about the I can't remember, the Oxycontin, rather, that sort of situation.
Opioids.
And apparently, that's what the pharmaceutical company was doing, and as part of their promotional thing was that they were showing graphs that were just like,
just straight up misrepresenting.
We're going to show the diagram doing this.
It's one of those things that like, they're showing a graph, but there's no fucking scale on this graph, so it completely misrepresents the time release of the drug and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's literally what they're doing. I don't know. Is it possible that it was just a mistake and someone got the 33 and the 65 the wrong way around? Maybe it does seem
column lined up, didn't sync it in
This
Excel.
is why pie charts suck. Don't do fucking pie charts anymore because pie charts are dumb, okay? If you want to see one thing next to another thing, do a bar graph. Thank you. This is someone who spent a lot of time in Excel in his masters over the last couple of months. Just no more pie charts, please and thank you.
You can't trust them with the bar graphs either. I think I saw something
At
where
least it would be obvious if it was like 30% versus 65%.
Yeah, I saw something where like on a fucking bar graph, I think it was defense spending was what they were talking about. It's like how much each Labor has spent on defense compared to the Nationals for some reason. And like in years where it said Labor had spent 1.8 billion or something like that was like here, like a lower sort of spot, but then the National spending 1.8 billion was up here. Like, so they're the same figure, but the bar was longer for one party over the other. Like, so the bar graphs don't
straight up misrepresenting
either if you're a complete fucknut.
No, you're right. But like, I guess it's more like the pie charts are like it's easy to mistake, or it's easy to not really grok what a pie chart is saying. Whereas like a bar graph, grok?
Sorry, can we just step back? Grok?
Get it, understand. People say
grok?
It's a thing.
It's what the kids are saying these days, Tom. You can look it up on Urban Dictionary. I actually don't know. It's probably could be something that George made up.
Anyway, so
Grok was a Swiss clown.
Anyway, so it's easy to misunderstand a pie chart, whereas when you got a bar graph, if you're doing it in good faith, if you're not actively trying to misrepresent, the ratios and the y-axis and all that sort of stuff as to what's going on, it's much easier to get an actual indication of what's happening. But you're right. There have been numerous examples now in the Murdoch press where they said something like it was like Labor defense spending in 2013, and then it was like Liberal defense spending from like 2023 onwards, making it seem like it was the 13, 14, 15 year was actually the 13 year, and then 2023, 10 years later. So of course it's much higher. Like it's just active misrepresentation as to what's actually going on, right?
You can put these things down to like, just maybe they got the 35 and the 65 the wrong way around. But it's oddly convenient that getting them the wrong way around benefits their clear bias.
Right, exactly.
And no, all right, I take it back. Grok, to understand intuitively or by empathy to establish rapport with. There you go. take it back. It sounded like you meant to say clock and you fucked it. But nope. Carry on. Anyway.
You grokked it. Anyway, so this is all off the rundown.
So hard.
Way
off the rundown. Let's get back to the rundown and go back to that reference I made about Josh Frydenberg and cute puppies.
Yes.
Which you normally think are a good thing, but because, Josh Frydenberg's involved, nothing's good. So Josh Frydenberg, I think it's fair to say, is maybe crapping his pants like he's a certain prime minister at Engadine Macca's, because maybe an independent might take his seat in Kooyong, which, I don't know if anyone else's heart skips a beat when they even just think that sentence, but there we go. So it's getting a bit hectic over there in Kooyong. So hectic to the point where a pamphlet was found recently where there was a ringing endorsement of Josh Frydenberg from Karen Hayes, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Guide Dogs Victoria. And that's ruffled a bit of feathers. Because
or a bit of fur, as the case may be.
A bit of fur. Yeah, a bit of fur. Or, I don't know, maybe dogs are like dinosaurs and they really have feathers and we just picture them wrong. Don't think about it. People are a bit stunned by this, Karen putting her, face and name and position at the Guide Dogs Victoria behind a political candidate such as this, because the Guide Dogs Victoria, generally their policy is to not do that.
Well, here's the thing.
They don't want you to do that.
It's not just their policy. It's also a legal requirement that if you are to maintain your charity status, that you not that you do not do the thing that Karen did do.
Yeah.
It's in order to maintain legitimacy as a charity, and to maintain your charitable status, you can't advocate for political causes one way or the other. So, and to the extent that if, according to the legislation, if a organization is found to be acting in a political manner, they can lose their status as a charity. They can be deregistered as a charity, which would be world-ending for a charity. Guide Dogs Victoria, they train up a bunch of dogs for blind people.
Very catastrophic, I think, for Guide Dogs Victoria to lose its charity status.
Completely catastrophic. It would, and it's, or even just it's like my wife works in an NGO, and it's like the first rule of working at an NGO is do not be political. Even just the idea of being seen as political could be dangerous, not just for your members and the donations that they give to you, but also you don't know which party's going to be in power next time around. The Libs might get in again, or it could be Labor, or, you don't want to side with one party and then completely fuck your chances with you. It's just bad practice to do any of this sort of shit. And so, she's given this ringing endorsement. There's a photo of her with a puppy, which is so manipulative. Just politicians with puppies, stop doing it. Why I am supporting Josh Frydenberg. Quote, time and time again, Josh has showed his genuine care for Guide Dogs Victoria and the people with low vision and blindness we serve. He has always maintained his strong and unwavering commitment to his local Kooyong community, for whom he has delivered in so many ways. Please continue pork barreling. Karen, Chief Executive Officer, Guide Dogs Victoria. I did add that little bit at the end, but it was implied.
So she's gone off and done this, and it's been printed, to be clear, on a Liberal Party pamphlet, I think. And
election pamphlets.
The Guide Dogs board have come out and obviously said, what the fuck? No.
Bad Karen, bad.
Bad Karen.
Sit.
Guide Dogs Victoria chair, Ian Edwards rolled up a newspaper and went, no.
No. Got the spray bottle out.
Yeah.
But this is you don't think, maybe this is just a one-off. Obviously, Freidenberg's been working with her to a certain point.
Freidenberg.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships.
Freidenberg.
Trademark that hashtag up.
I'm Frieden of Borg. Resistance is futile.
Resistance is futile.
If you're not a Star Trek fan, this will make no sense. Watch Star Trek. It's fun. This comes a week after another person, Kate Sayers, who is the founder of Down Syndrome support charity Inclusion Foundation also appeared in a similar promotion for Freidenberg.
So what it tells me is that the Libs are scrambling in Kooyong. They're absolutely shitting. Their DACs are brown DACs clipped together, just holding the bulging shit in their pants. Like
might as well go to work each day in brown pants, so no one will notice.
But just like aside from all this, like if you take a step back and you go, okay, has this been looked at before? And it's like, oh shit. In 2019, over the last few years, the Liberals have been actively campaigning for charities to be non-biased in their approach. Particularly
and they will have a fucking go at Get Up, right? For advocating for climate change candidates. You know,
Get
like
Up's not
a charity. I don't think they're like lobbying
charity.
No, but but what I'm saying is they'll get stuck into organizations like Get Up and accuse them of being partisan. Meanwhile, they're speaking to their own mates being like, yo, can you put together a sick flyer with a dope little puppy dog to like try and advocate my political cause? It's like such hypocrites. Like,
and they can, if they're having a go at Greenpeace and other environmental organizations for particularly, maybe supporting particularly maybe a Labor policy.
Maybe supporting parties that don't... Stop having shit policies. Stop having policies that burn the world to the ground, and you might get Greenpeace on board.
And also, these weren't the only instances of Josh Frydenberg's campaigning getting in hot water. There was these two charities as well, but there was some banners that were being put up around Kooyong with a photo of Josh Frydenberg from, I think, maybe 5 years ago or something like that, with him and a bunch of scouts. Scouts from Scouts Victoria. So, kids sort of in them, and they're all standing there. They're doing the scout salute, the 3 fingers and all that sort of stuff. And they were put up as campaign materials. And one of the children, 5 years older now, but was like, we were told like that this photo op would not be used in this capacity. Oh, wow. Take it down. And they're like, okay, we'll be covering it with a sticker soon. But like, they're just putting up whatever they want and getting in trouble for it. 3 fucking times here in Josh Frydenberg's electorate. Looking great, isn't it?
The stuff with Karen Hayes, the reason why it's not illegal is that it's a personal endorsement. It's why she is supporting Josh Frydenberg. But it just so happens she's holding a puppy and it says Karen, Chief Executive Officer of Guide Dogs Victoria.
Yeah, that's what I meant before when I said, like, not only is she putting her name to it, but she's putting her position in this well-known organization on it too. So even though you might be saying, you could like do the nitty-gritty like specifics, let's get like really pedantic on it to be like, it's not Guide Dogs Victoria endorsing him, it's Karen, but she's using Guide Dogs Victoria to legitimize her endorsement.
Yes.
Right? Because otherwise it would just be, who's Karen? Who's holding a puppy? Why do I give a shit that you like Josh Frydenberg? Without the Chief Executive Officer of Guide Dogs Victoria there, it's just, you're just some person who says they like Josh Frydenberg. All that tells me is that you're an idiot.
All that tells me is that you're wrong.
All that tells me is that you're a fucking numpty. But no, now you're a fucking numpty who's in charge of Guide Dogs Victoria.
I think I worked out why Josh Frydenberg's losing support in his electorate. So it turns out
the last 3 years of his awful bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. But also, he's actually abandoned the $65 million of car parks for his own seat earlier this year. So all those car parks that were promised for Kooyong, not happening now, guys. So,
the car parks that they didn't want and didn't need, couldn't even use. They're like, there's actually places here where we've allocated car parks where they can't go. Cool. So the person who's challenging Mr. Freidenberg in the seat of Kooyong is Dr. Monique Ryan, who's one of these voices of independence that we've been hearing so much of lately. According to the latest polling, it seems like on a 2-party preferred basis, which is interesting because there are definitely more than 2 parties. The Labor, remember Labor? On A poll of 847 Kooyong residents conducted on April 12th found independent candidate Monique Ryan held a 59 to 41% two-party preferred lead over Mr. Freidenberg in the inner Melbourne electorate.
Yeah, 59 to
41.
That's a hefty margin.
I mean, in the modern era of really tight electoral sort of polarization in elections, that's like pretty devastating. Now you've seen a couple of stories yesterday or something saying that that Monique Ryan is secretly a Nazi because she posted a meme about Josh Frydenberg, which was a Hogan's Heroes meme, which had him dressed up in a Nazi uniform. So therefore she's a neo-Nazi. I feel like that's pretty desperate. I don't think that's an accurate representation of what she actually thinks.
I think framing her as a neo-Nazi is wrong in that. Tasteless, given Josh Frydenberg's Jewish.
Yeah.
It's like, not a great thing. Not a great thing to do. It's like maybe a dog act, but it doesn't mean that she's a neo-Nazi. Maybe like that meme is in very poor taste.
It reeks to me of someone who's just like and it says like Bogan's Heroes, haha. It's just kind of like a throwaway sort of like reshare sort of thing, and someone's obviously the Dirt team has gone through everything she's ever posted, and they've been waited until right now in order to drop it to make her seem anti-Semitic. But like you look at her policies, you go to her website, like it's all the very voices of Zali Steagall type stuff, action on climate change, integrity, federal ICAC, diversity, inclusion, healthcare, like it's all pretty center left. Like a lot of the stuff is actually a little bit more progressive than what Labor's putting forward as part of their platform. Like their climate change plan, reduce emissions by at least 60% by 2030 in line with Zali Steagall's climate change bill, is actually more ambitious than the Labor plan, which is 50% by 2030, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So she's actually more progressive than a lot of Labor candidates, and yet she doesn't have the stink of Labor on her, so people feel as though they can actually vote for her. So
billboards are blue, so
teal.
There's that.
It's like
teal. Would you call it? I thought a dark navy.
No, hers is teal.
Well, the background around
and
her
the
is
liberal.
The text below it is.
And where are you looking at? You're looking at a website, or what?
I'm looking at Camberwell Junction, which is lit up like a fucking Christmas tree with political ads right now.
Camberwell Junction. That's the Josh Frydenberg advertisement that she's in front of you.
Top left, and then underneath it. So on the top of this building, there's Josh.
So he has the billboard. And then she's got all the posters, right?
So, it's interesting that we're talking about colors because so teal is the independence, right? Which is like a light blue. And if you'll notice, the Josh Frydenberg and Dave Sharma was found to be doing this recently as well, where they're going from the dark blue of the Liberals and they're sort of tealifying it. So if you look at this Josh Frydenberg poster in the background, it starts off, it's like a gradient. It starts off as teal and then moves into a darker blue as it goes along the banner. And I think that's on purpose. Like, I really do think it is
100%. Nothing they do in these is by accident.
Yeah, it's to conflate the Liberals with the independents because they know that the LNP has a bit of stink on them right now, and people don't want to be associated. Which is why you haven't seen ScoMo in Kooyong, for example, because he's fucking toxic there. Like, he would actually do the opposite of what a prime minister coming and campaigning on your behalf would normally do.
And also maybe because Josh might be keen for a bit of a stabby stab at some point to like become the leader, right?
It's so interesting because Josh Frydenberg has always been spoken about as the man who would be king, right? Like the guy who's ready to take the lead at the next election. Once ScoMo gets knifed and loses, he'll be the next leader if provided.
I don't know about that. I think there's going to be a shit fight between him and Dutton.
Yeah. So this is the thing. It's like if Josh Frydenberg loses his own seat and isn't in Parliament anymore, like it does seem like a fait accompli that it's Dutton, right? Like
just the Imperial March starts playing in the halls of Parliament House.
That's kind of the stuff that scares me is when you hollow out what are supposedly the moderate Liberals, and I think Freidenberg's more in that faction.
He's considered a moderate liberal, but he votes with all the fuckwits. Like his votes his voting record's exactly the same as Dave Sharma, which is exactly the same as Barnaby Joyce, which is exactly the same as, they all vote together, right? Like
to do with what they're discussing in the party room behind closed doors, which is where it's important. So, if you hollow out the liberal centre, then it actually pushes them further right.
I think it makes it easier for them to be the extremists that they all secretly are. And like all that tells me is we shouldn't vote them in. Like we shouldn't vote. I don't think if I vote for Dave Sharma and we get
George, because they're going to be voting him in whether you like it or not.
If we get another, like if you vote Josh Frydenberg back in, if you vote Dave Sharma back in, all of these teal, electorates that are sort of slowly, I guess in America they call them purple, right? They're sort of, very marginal. I don't think we're going to see like very progressive, policy as a result. We're just going to see another 3 years of what we've already seen 9 years of, which is the conservatives running the roost. And every time someone mentions energy policy or, or anything to do with renewables, they just stab. It just gets a bit Caesarian up in the party room. Someone gets knifed and then, another version of the same old asshole takes their place. Like nothing's going to change if you vote it back in.
Speaking of, Dave Sharma, the votes are all the same. Maybe, charities and their charity status as to whether or not they're getting too political and that the Liberals go for them when it's going maybe against them and all that sort of stuff. Just that story about the guide dogs linked me to another one that I'd totally forgotten about from back in November, where Dave Sharma and Andrew Bragg, another Liberal senator from New South Wales, were complaining about the charitable status for the website They Vote For You, which is just a website where all it does is just reading the data from like the public record of what MPs voted for, and you can see what they voted for. It's literally all it does. Like, I guess that's the most bipartisan you could possibly get. Like,
it's just telling facts, like they voted for this thing or not.
It's saying that like on this issue, these people voted yay, these people voted nay, and what those issues were about. You don't arrive to a big banner that says the Liberal Party are cucks or something. All it does is you look up an MP and you can see their voting record. That's all it is. But no, Andrew Bragg and Dave Sharma were complaining and saying that it should be stripped of its charitable status. This is back in November, to say, quote from Senator Bragg, its primary purpose is to provide curated content and present information in a highly partial, polemical? I don't know know what that means. I'll admit that. Okay, and partisan light.
Yeah.
It's the least fucking, I don't know.
To say you're
going
on
the least partisan you could get.
To say
all it does is,
Yeah.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, it's dumb to say like telling the truth about what happened is political because it makes me look bad. It's just like, like you say, they're saying the quiet part out loud. It's like, no, we can't tell the people my voting record because then they won't vote for me.
Because it tells you exactly what you just said, George, that like, okay, you voted for a quote unquote moderate liberal like Dave Sharma, but he'll vote in support of whatever Barnaby Joyce is up to, and you wouldn't say Barnaby Joyce is moderate at all. So, a vote for Dave Sharma is a vote for Barnaby Joyce. Effectively, like him being the leader of the Nationals and then ScoMo being the leader of the Liberals, like, if you're voting for your moderate Liberal, you're really voting for the shit cunt ones.
Well, I don't know about that. I think there are implications for voting out, whether it be Labor as well, whether it be if certain members who are part of a certain faction are no longer there and it sways the numbers the other way, you find the policy platforms of that party will shift in a more dramatic way than you would otherwise find.
Okay, but like we haven't seen any evidence Oh,
So
yeah, exactly. So number one is
the
like
evidence is Tony Abbott and Joe Hockey back in 2014. They got in. The Conservative faction had all the power.
No, because you're playing the game.
Hollowed out spending on everything.
You're agreeing to their framing by positioning it that way. They're like, the default good position is the Conservative position, okay, and anything else is an attempt to moderate and water down that correct position, okay. How about we frame it as if this party does not comport to the values that society holds, they will never fucking hold government again, right? That's what a representative democracy is. It's like, if we're framing it from this end, rather than saying, oh, we need to get the moderates in there to make them sane, how about don't vote for the insane party to begin with, and then we won't have these issues. Vote for the sane party, and then we can moderate their views to the center, like, if that's what you really want. But you know, it's like, you can't be like, no. We need to vote for the insane party in order to.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there is an effect, whether we like it or not. Like, you can't control that.
There might be an effect within the party, but if they're the ones that aren't in charge, that's for their little shit fight to have until next election, where we remind people again, don't vote for the crazy party.
Here's a way to moderate their extreme views. Make sure they stay the fuck out of power until they start holding more moderate views. This is a popularity contest. If you lose and get fucked into the dirt this election cycle, next election cycle, the election cycle after that, all of a sudden they're going to be coming to the table going, oh, geez, I don't know about this climate change stuff. And that's exactly what's happened, right? Because they've seen the losses that are, the potential losses looming in Kooyong and up in, Dave Sharma's seat, whatever the name of it is, up in New South Wentworth. Like, because they're seeing the potential losses in what were these otherwise blue ribbon Liberal seats. Now, all of a sudden, they've got a plan for COP26. Now, all of a sudden, they've got, they're not saying that electric vehicles are going to ruin the weekend. Bill Shorten's trying to ruin your weekend with electric vehicles can't pull stuff.
I'd forgotten about that. God, that was so dumb.
That was 3 years ago. It wasn't that long ago where they were railing against electric vehicles and making fun. ScoMo was holding a piece of coal on the floor of Parliament. It's just a piece of coal. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the coal. They've moderated their views in 3 years. Why? Because they're shit scared of losing. It's not because Barnaby Joyce has had a fucking change of heart. He got bought off with an inland rail fucking, all of a sudden $3 billion shows up in the budget for an inland rail thing, which is just exactly what he wanted. Okay, like, it's not that he's had a change of heart or because he's been moderated by the sensible voices in the Liberal Party. It's because they're shit scared of losing. And that's what a representative democracy is, right?
Probably a good way to segue, because we're running out of time, to a story about the French election, where Emmanuel Macron is the incumbent president, is going up against Marine Le Pen as the challenger, shall we say. There are a few other candidates, I think, but they're the two that are probably going to be the ones that are important. Now, in 2017, Le Pen lost the election badly because she was, quote, too far, well, not quote, just basically in
she
summary,
is an extremist.
An extremist on the right, and Macron was a centrist. So what she did over 3 years, she went back, she had, as George said, she had a think, and she came out, rebranded, renamed the party, and then watered down all her talking points. And
so
what that's done is it's actually put her further ahead in the polls than last time around. She still, however, isn't quite there from the latest polling that's coming out.
Yeah, so polls published last week after their live TV debate showed Macron's score stable or rising at 55.5 and 57.5% in a two-way vote, and Le Pen's between 42.5 and 44.5%. So it's a lead for Macron of 14 points, but far closer than last time around, where it was 66% to 34%, where the same two contestants met in 2017. So it's not looking like it seems like Macron will win, but it's not. Obviously nothing's set in stone, and he's definitely not going to win. If he does win, he's not going to win as handily as he did last time because of these moderated extremist views that her ardently held beliefs that she now has later, 3 years later.
Sorry, I was just reading some of the quotes from this story about the French election, and just seeing the quote from Marine Le Pen saying, "Polls aren't what decide an election." No, that's literally what decides an election.
The poll on the day,
The single one, not all the polls, but it is literally a poll that decides an election. Like, it's like John Howard here in Australia said something this week of like the Australian, like, this election will be decided by the Australian people voting for which leader they want most. It's like, yeah, John, I'm glad we got you in for that. What wonderful insight from your decades long political career.
Is John okay? Is he all you there, mate?
Was he ever?
Good question. Yes, it is interesting though, because this time around there's been candidates to the right of Marine Le Pen. So I was watching an episode of Foreign Correspondent, which was going into this, where it was talking about this guy.
Oh, big shot. I watch Foreign Correspondent. I'm George.
There was an episode, Foreign Correspondent. You fucking read a book, you pleb. I'm talking about watching a TV show. I just said
Michael O'Brien. Say your name, Michael O'Brien.
Yes, I think it is Michael O'Brien who's on that.
The guy off Breakfast who's now in France doing France things.
No, not O'Brien. Michael
eating delicious pastries.
Someone
cheese.
It's Michael
anyway,
something.
Yeah, there is someone further to the right, which I don't know. I don't know how it affects, because the French, we were saying last week, they have like a runoff system.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. So basically, it's a bunch of parties that come together, and everyone does a first round vote, and then basically the top two candidates of that first round vote then go head to head in another runoff election, which is who determines who's actually going to be in charge. So it's similar
to our like preferential sort of system in a way.
Similar, but it's two parts. So rather than doing it all in the one system where you just vote your preferences 1 through 6, they have two sort of separate voting periods, which is kind of
complicated. So like after they go through and like knock it down to two parties, then they ask people to vote again, with these being your only choices.
Correct.
Okay.
So it becomes a 1-to-1
grade, and then they bring out the cup, and it's like presented. I'm thinking of a sporting analogy. That's all.
Because what they really do in France is they bring out the octopus and they put the flags in the tank.
Yeah,
and and they go and choose them.
Pick the flag off. That's to win the World Cup.
That term where the octopus just didn't pick anything and just kind of sat there in defiance was just a tumultuous time for French politics.
Anyway, so there's this candidate, Éric Zemmour, who is this sort of far right insurgent candidate who's basically taken the role that Marine Le Pen has taken in years past, but it's sort of because she's now more of a centrist, quote unquote. It's sort of given legitimacy to her views. So which has been the decades-long effort on her part to sort of sanitize the party and mainstream these views. And because there's like someone who to the crazy lunatic fringe right of even her, it kind of makes her look more normal, if that makes sense. So
some of her proposals, for instance, would exclude non and dual nationals from many public sector jobs and restrict their access to welfare. Also cancelling automatic citizenship rights for children of non-nationals born in France and making naturalisation harder. So a lot of it, and this is to do with, it's all flow-on effects, I guess, in some ways, from same thing as Brexit, where the refugee crisis from all the leftover stuff from the Arab Spring back in 2012, all the effects of that and the migrant movement through Europe, that has hit France pretty hard, to be fair, in the last decade. But it has, just like with Brexit and other European countries as well, it's drawn up the far right and given them a platform to stand on.
Yeah, it's fanned the flames of like nationalist assholes.
Yeah. And it's been a real problem in Europe. I mean, Greece famously has their Golden Dawn party. Hungary, Austria have all sort of drifted very far to the right. There's
Nazis in Ukraine, George.
Don't get me wrong. Like, there are some Nazis in Ukraine.
There are Nazis here.
Yeah, but like we got them here in the Grampians as well.
New Zealand.
So, the thing that I think is really concerning about this swing to the right in European countries and France in particular is that it basically completely disenfranchises the left. Like you have no choice. You can vote for Macron, who's like a centrist, centre-right candidate, would probably belong in the Liberal Party here from all accounts. Like, isn't a very progressive candidate by any means. Or you can vote for the sanitized version of the crazy right candidate, Marine Le Pen. And so the left is just completely sort of disenfranchised. And something that's really scary is the way the influencer community has really sort of bought in to this whole sort of far right narrative. It's not just, people advocating for, go vote at the next election or go vote for this candidate. It's this whole like TikTok, YouTube infrastructure around legitimizing these extremely far right views. And so young people, they profile in this foreign correspondent report. I'll post the link. This influencer, Thais de Escuffon, 22, young blonde girl, and she's just like bought in like hook, line, and sinker into this Éric Zemmour guy and his far right views. And it's like something you don't see a lot of here. Like here, the young people largely, listen to Triple J and go to music festivals and, vote Greens. Like it is like pretty, unless you're like the one guy who's like, I'm going to be a lawyer at Minter Ellison and my dad's a QC, so I'm a young liberal. Like pretty much everyone else of our generation is like to the left. But it seems to be this growing contingent of young influencers in France and elsewhere that are fueling this like far right sort of resurgence, which is quite scary.
Four corners, we'll post it on our website or on the blog post.
It was a foreign correspondent, yeah, but I've got the ABC link, and if you're here in Australia, that'll connect to the foreign correspondent episode. But there's also an article that goes along with it, which everyone can sort of watch. But yeah, it's just a sad day because it's like, okay, yes, Macron seems like a sensible person, but like the whole Overton window of the country is just like shifted pretty far right. Which
you're
is
also
scary.
forgetting though that the French every 6 months will have their annual riot. Where
with the yellow vests and that sort of stuff,
where they'll and that drags them back to the left because
it is interesting because part of what Le Pen is running on is a very sort of populist sort of, like saying that, Macron's plan to raise the retirement age to 67 was equivalent to, what'd she say? Was equivalent
it's not even 67, it's 65.
65.
Yeah.
Yeah, was the same thing as same thing as slavery or something like that. It's like they've got this very sort of like, yeah, or not. I think she said slavery, but it was something akin to.
I was going to say, I think that's definitely not the right analogy. I don't think enslaved people had retirement ages. Right? No, it was much worse.
Yeah, so the Islamic centrists rivals unpopular plan to extend the retirement age to 65, saying it amounted to, quote, a life sentence. Le Pen said the choice facing French voters on Sunday was fundamental. It's in the hands of the French people. It is Macron or France.
Polls will open on Sunday at 8 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. across most of France and 8 p.m. in major cities.
But it's just like this idea that, yeah, there is a populist bent to all of this, which is interesting. It's like, you wouldn't describe it as leftist, but what you're talking about, not extending the retirement age to 60, here we're talking about like it's going to be 70 by the time we fucking hit it, and they're like, no, we couldn't raise it to 65. That'd be crazy. So like there are some like embedded kind of like vaguely socialisty ideals that underpin European culture more generally, but then these like cultural things are very sort of populist, like the idea that we're only going to give jobs to French national people, as like it's just like nonsensical. It's a nonsensical policy that like would actually hurt everyone and doesn't make any sense. But for some reason,
yeah,
it's like a very popular, like they've got a very deep sense of like French nationalism, which we don't have here, and that kind of like bleeds across traditional left-right dichotomies. It doesn't quite make a lot of sense.
It's a nationalistic sentiment as opposed to
nationalistic, populist, kind of thing. And some of those things sound a bit socialist, right? We're going to give you a job if you're French, right? That's quite socialisty, right? But, it's got that and National Socialists always work out historically. There's no popular examples where that's gone poorly. So looking forward to Macron winning, I guess. But
we'll see tomorrow.
Yeah.
Depending on which side of the date line we're on.
Oh, and this whole thing about we completely skipped over Marine Le Pen, took a $12 million loan from a Russian bank several years ago and just never paid it back. What's up with that? That definitely seems like pro-Putin. What's going on there?
Yeah, either that wasn't really a loan, or maybe that was a gift or something, or gee, the Russians are going to come for you eventually. It's
definitely a coordinated, it seems like from all the reporting, it's a coordinated campaign of Russian influence on the French election, because she holds a lot of pro-Putin sort of ideas, especially when Putin is Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader, had this whole extended Twitter thread where he was basically begging people in France to vote for Macron as opposed to Marine Le Pen, which was quite interesting. And he wrote it in French. I don't know if he's a French speaker or if someone translated it for him, but it was quite interesting, this whole added dimension of Russian influence on their election that may be sort of driving it. So yeah, hopefully she loses and goes down in a ball of flames.
She'll be back stronger in 3 years and then win.
They'll be back and in greater numbers. On that note, we have been listening. You have been listening. We haven't been listening. You've been listening to Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and motherfucking TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm killing it lately at George Tsibos.
You don't say so yourself. You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Doreen.
And you can follow us all down to Kooyong, where we will be placing lots of teal posters for Dr. Monique, Ryan.
The bottom of their poster, though, is dark blue because it matches the shirt. So she's wearing a blue shirt, and so they've matched.
So they're both using the same tactic. Clever.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys. Love you. We'll see you next week.
Artistic, just get on Canva, blend the colors together. You have a free account.
Canva's a dangerous tool.
Upgrade for $12.99.
Josh Frydenberg's a dangerous tool. Thanks. Bye.